My name is Vincent Vinny Malone, and I'm a man who's seen the underbelly of this city, Chicago, 1925, where the streets hum with secrets, and the air smells of whiskey and gunpowder. I wasn't born into this life. I stumbled into it, like a drunk tripping into an alley. Once I was just a kid from the South Side, dreaming of a clean suit and a steady job. But dreams don't pay the rent, and hunger has a way of bending a man's spine. Now I run with the O'Connell crew, a band of Irish toughs who carved their names into the city's bones. This is my story, how I became one of them, how I betrayed them, and how I learned that loyalty in this game is just a pretty word for a loaded gun. The rain was coming down in sheets, turning Clark Street into a river of mud and regret. I was 22, shivering in a threadbare coat, when Tommy O'Connell found me outside McGinty's Tavern. My stomach was gnawing itself, and I'd been out of work since the stockyards cut shifts. Tommy, with his sharp fedora and a grin like a fox, leaned against the brick wall, cigarette dangling from his lips. "Vinny Malone," he said, voice smooth as bootleg gin, "you look like a fella who's tired of scraping by." I squinted through the rain. "What's it to you, Tommy?" He flicked his cigarette into the gutter. "Heard you're quick with your fists and don't scare easy. We need a driver. Tonight, pays $50. $50 was a month's wages for most. I didn't ask what the job was. I didn't need to. In Chicago 1925, if Tommy O'Connell was offering cash, it meant trouble. But trouble was better than starving. "All right," I said. "I'm in." Tommy clapped my shoulder and led me to a black Packard idling around the corner. Inside were two others, Frankie Doyle, a wiry kid with eyes like a cornered rat, and Big Paulie, a mountain of a man whose knuckles were scarred like old leather. They didn't talk much, just nodded as I slid behind the wheel. We drove north, past the speakeasies and jazz joints to a warehouse on the river. The job was simple. Pick up a shipment of Canadian whiskey, dodge the cops, and deliver it to a joint on Halsted Street. Simple, sure, but nothing in this city stayed simple. As I parked the car, I saw headlights flash in the distance too close. Too fast. "Cops?" I whispered. Tommy's grin didn't falter. "Not cops, Italians." My gut twisted. The Italians, Capone's boys, didn't play nice. Everyone knew about the turf wars, the bodies washing up in the Chicago River. Prohibition had turned the city into a chessboard, and we were pawns in a game where kings carried Tommy guns. "Drive!" Tommy hissed, pulling a .45 from his coat. I gunned the engine as gunfire cracked behind us. Tires screeched, and I weaved through alleys, heart pounding like a drum. Frankie was cursing, Big Paulie was reloading, and Tommy was laughing. Actually laughing as bullets pinged off the car. We lost them somewhere near the loop, and by the time we dropped the crates at Halsted, my hands were shaking but my blood was singing. Tommy tossed me a roll of bills. "Good work, kid. You're one of us now." I didn't know then what us meant, but that night, under the flickering gas lights, I felt alive for the first time in years. The O'Connell crew wasn't just a gang. It was a family, or so they like to say. Tommy's uncle, Liam O'Connell, ran the show, a barrel-chested Irishman with a voice like gravel and a temper that could burn a room down. Liam had come to Chicago in the 1890s, a starving immigrant who clawed his way up from the docks to the top of the city's liquor trade. By 1925, he controlled half the speakeasies on the west side, and his word was law. I learned the ropes fast. Mornings were for planning meetings in smoky back rooms, where Liam laid out the day's jobs, hijacking rival shipments, bribing cops, or shaking down bar owners who thought they could skip protection payments. Afternoons were for collections, driving through neighborhoods where kids played stickball and mothers hung laundry, pretending they didn't see the guns under our coats. Nights were for deliveries, slipping crates of whiskey into basements while jazz bands played overhead. I wasn't just a driver anymore. Tommy saw something in me, maybe the way I kept my cool when things went south, and started bringing me into the inner circle. I met the others. Mickey, the bookkeeper, who could make numbers dance. Kate, Liam's sister, who ran the speakeasy on Division Street and could charm a cop into forgetting his badge. And Sean, Tommy's older brother, whose quiet stare made even Big Paulie nervous. Sean was the one to watch. He didn't talk much, but when he did, you listened. One night over a bottle of rye, he told me about the Great War, how he'd seen men torn apart in France and come back to a city that didn't care. This life, he said, tapping his glass, it's the only one that makes sense. You take what you can because no one's giving you nothing. I nodded, but something in his eyes, a flicker of doubt, stuck with me. Sean was loyal to Liam, but I wondered if he believed in the game or just played it because he didn't know how to stop. By spring, I was a regular at Kate's Speakeasy, a joint called The Emerald. It was a classy place, all velvet curtains and brass fixtures, where politicians and gangsters drank side by side. I'd sit at the bar, sipping a whiskey sour, watching Kate work the room. She was sharp, beautiful in a way that cut through the smoke, and I started to think maybe this life wasn't so bad. But the city was heating up. Capone's outfit was pushing west, and Liam was losing patience. One night, he called us to the warehouse. His face was red, veins bulging. "Those guineas think they can muscle in on our turf," he roared. "We hit 'em hard, tomorrow." The plan was bold. Hijack a Capone shipment coming in from Gary, Indiana. 10 crates of top-shelf bourbon, worth a fortune. Tommy put me in charge of the crewmie, Frankie, Big Paulie, and a new kid named Joey. I should have felt proud, but something felt off. Joey was too eager, always asking questions, always watching. The job went smooth at first. We ambushed the truck on a quiet road, tied up the drivers, and loaded the crates into our van. But as we sped back to Chicago, Joey pulled a gun. "Sorry, Vinny," he said, voice cold. "This ain't personal." He was working for Capone. The whole job was a setup. Frankie took a bullet before I could react, and Big Paulie tackled Joey, snapping his neck like a twig. We ditched the van and hid the crates in an abandoned barn, but the damage was done. Frankie was dead, and I'd led us into a trap. When I told Liam, he didn't yell. He just stared at me, like he was measuring my worth. "You're still breathing," he said finally. "That's something. But you owe me, Vinny. You owe me big." I didn't sleep that night. Frankie's face kept flashing in my mind, and I started to see the cracks in the O'Connell family. Loyalty wasn't a bond, it was a chain. Kate noticed the change in me. One night at the Emerald, she pulled me aside. "You're carrying something heavy, Vinny," she said, her green eyes searching mine. "Talk to me." I wanted to tell her everything about Frankie, about Joey, about the guilt eating me alive. But I couldn't. Instead, I kissed her. It was a mistake, but it felt right. Her lips soft and warm against the cold of the world. For a moment, I forgot the blood on my hands. Kate wasn't just Liam's sister. She was his eyes and ears. Falling for her was dangerous, but I was already in too deep. She started slipping me secrets about Liam's deals, about Sean's doubts, about a big job coming up that could change everything. A train heist, she said, carrying cash from Capone's casinos in Cicero. If we pulled it off, we'd be kings. If we failed, we'd be dead. I didn't trust the plan, but I trusted Kate. She wore a red dress the night we planned it, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. "Be careful, Vinny," she whispered as we parted. "Liam's watching you." I didn't know then that she was playing both sides, but I should have. In this city, everyone's got an angle. The night of the heist was moonless, the air thick with the smell of coal and river muck. We gathered in a rail yard on the edge of Cicero, where the tracks cut through the city like veins. Liam had laid it out clean. The train was coming from Capone's casinos, loaded with cash, hundreds of thousands, maybe more. Our job was to stop it, grab the money, and vanish before the Italians knew what hit them. Simple on paper, but nothing in this life was ever simple. I was behind the wheel of a beat-up Ford, parked in the shadows of a grain silo. Tommy was beside me, checking his revolver. Big Paulie and Sean were in the back, silent as ghosts. A new guy, Eddie, was with us. Some ex-boxer Liam had pulled from the docks. I didn't like his twitchy hands, but we were short-handed since Frankie's death. "Vinny," Tommy said, lighting a cigarette. "You good?" I nodded, but my gut was screaming. Kate's warning echoed in my head. "Liam's watching you." I hadn't told anyone about her, about the nights we'd spent tangled in her apartment above the Emerald, whispering dreams of a life beyond Chicago. She'd hinted at a way out, take the money from the heist and run, just the two of us. It was a crazy thought, but it burned in me like a fever. The train's whistle cut through the night, and we moved. Sean and Big Polly slipped onto the tracks, planting dynamite to derail the engine. Eddie and I waited to rush the cargo car, while Tommy kept lookout. The explosion was quick, a sharp crack that shook the ground. The train screeched, metal grinding against metal, and then it was chaos. We hit the cargo car hard. Eddie bashed the lock with a crowbar and I climbed inside, heart pounding. The cash was there, stacked in leather bags, more money than I'd ever seen. But as I hauled the first bag out, gunfire erupted. Capone's boys were waiting. "Ambush!" Tommy shouted, diving behind a crate. Bullets tore through the night, and I saw Eddie go down, blood blooming across his chest. Big Polly was a bull, firing back with a Tommy gun, but there were too many of them. Sean grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the car. "Move, Vinny!" We made it to the Ford, one bag of cash in tow, but the Italians were closing in. I floored it, tires spitting gravel, and we tore out of the rail yard. In the rear view, I saw flames licking the wrecked train. Sean was cursing, Tommy was bleeding from a graze on his arm, and Big Polly was laughing like a madman. We ditched the car in an alley and split up, the bag of cash heavy in my hands. I was supposed to meet Liam at the warehouse, but Kate's voice was louder in my head. "Run, Vinny. Take it and run." I met Kate at a diner on Ashland Avenue, a greasy joint where the coffee tasted like tar and the jukebox played Bessie Smith. She was in that red dress again, her hair catching the dim light like fire. I slid into the booth, the bag of cash hidden under my coat. "You got it?" she asked, voice low. I nodded, my mouth dry. "Enough to start over, California maybe, or New York." Her eyes softened, but there was something else there, something I didn't want to see. "Vinny, you trust me, don't you?" I wanted to say yes, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I leaned across the table and kissed her, hard, like it could drown the doubt. She kissed me back, but her hands were cold. We left the diner and headed to her apartment. The plan was to lay low until morning, then catch a train west. But as we climbed the stairs, I heard footsteps behind us. I turned, hand on my gun, and saw Sean. "Vinny," he said, his voice like ice, "you're making a mistake." Kate froze, her hand on my arm. "Sean, what are you doing here?" He stepped closer, his eyes locked on me. "Liam knows, Vinny. He knows you're planning to run, and he knows about her." My heart sank. Kate's grip tightened, and I saw the truth in her face. She'd told Sean. Maybe not everything, but enough. The woman I loved had sold me out. "Vinny, listen," she started, but I pulled away. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." Sean drew his gun. "Hand over the bag, Vinny. Let's make this easy." I could have fought. I could have shot him and ran, but I was tired of the blood, the lies, the city that chewed up men like me. I dropped the bag at his feet. "Take it," I said, "but tell Liam I'm done." Sean's eyes narrowed, but he didn't shoot. He just picked up the bag and walked away, leaving me and Kate in the stairwell. She was crying, but I didn't look back as I walked out into the night. Chicago didn't let you go easy. I knew Liam wouldn't forgive the betrayal, and Capone's boys were still out for blood. I had no money, no crew, no Kate, but I had one thing left: my name. I went to ground, hiding in a flop house on the south side. The papers were screaming about the train heist cops, calling it the biggest robbery since the Brinks job in 22. My name wasn't in the headlines, but I knew Liam was looking for me. So was Capone. Days turned into weeks. I worked odd jobs loading crates at the docks, washing dishes in a diner, trying to scrape together enough for a train ticket out. But the city had a way of pulling you back. One night I was walking home when I saw Tommy leaning against a lamppost, cigarette glowing in the dark. "Vinny," he said, like we were old pals. "You look like hell." I tensed, ready for a fight. "What do you want, Tommy?" He flicked his cigarette away. "Liam's gone soft. Sean's running things now, and he's worse. Thinks he's Capone. I'm out, Vinny, but I need your help." I laughed, bitter. "You think I'm dumb enough to go back?" "Not back," he said. "Forward. One last job. We take Sean down, split the cash, and disappear. It was a crazy plan, but Tommy's eyes were steady. He wasn't lying. Sean had turned on Liam, locked him in his own warehouse, and was planning to sell out to Capone. Tommy wanted to hit Sean's safe house, take the money, and free Liam. It wasn't about loyalty, it was about survival. I agreed, not because I trusted Tommy, but because I wanted to end it, one way or another. The safe house was a rundown tenement on Wabash Avenue, guarded by Sean's loyalists. Tommy and I went in at midnight, armed with pistols and a crowbar. The plan was simple: get in, get the cash, get Liam, get out. But plans don't survive contact with reality. We took out the guards quietly, but Sean was waiting. He stood in the middle of the room, a Tommy gun in his hands, Liam tied to a chair behind him. Kate was there too, her face pale, a bruise on her cheek. "You're predictable, Vinny," Sean said. "Always chasing the wrong thing." I raised my gun. "Let Liam go, Sean. This doesn't have to end bloody." He laughed, cold and sharp. "You think you're a hero? You're just a punk who got lucky." Before I could answer, Kate moved. She grabbed a knife from the table and lunged at Sean, slicing his arm. He roared, swinging the gun, but I fired first. The bullet hit his chest and he crumpled, blood pooling on the floor. Tommy untied Liam, who looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're done here, Vinny," he said. "Take the girl and go." I looked at Kate, her hands shaking, her eyes pleading. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't. We grabbed the cash, less than we'd hoped, but enough, and ran. The city was a maze of shadows as Kate and I slipped through the alleys, the bag of cash slung over my shoulder. The air was thick with the scent of coal smoke and desperation, and every passing car felt like a threat. Chicago in 1925 was no place for a man with a price on his head, and I knew both Liam's crew and Capone's boys would be hunting us. Kate clung to my arm, her breath uneven, her red dress torn at the hem from our scramble out of the safe house. "Where are we going, Vinny?" she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the hum of the city. "Union Station," I said. "We catch the first train west. California, maybe. Somewhere they won't find us." She nodded, but her eyes were distant, like she was seeing something I couldn't. I wanted to ask about the bruise on her cheek, about why she'd turned on Sean, but there wasn't time. The streets were alive with danger, and trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Still, her hand in mine felt like the only anchor I had left. We ducked into a pawn shop on State Street, where I traded my watch, a cheap thing my father had given me, before he drank himself to death, for enough cash to buy 2 train tickets. The clerk, a wiry old man with a face like crumpled paper, didn't ask questions. In Chicago, nobody did. At the station, the air was thick with steam and the chatter of travelers. I bought tickets for the California Limited, due to leave at dawn. Kate sat on a bench, clutching the bag, while I scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Tommy, Liam, or worse, one of Capone's enforcers. The clock above the ticket booth read 3:17 a.m. 2 hours to go. "You think we'll make it?" Kate asked, her voice small. I wanted to lie, to tell her everything would be fine, but I'd seen too much blood to believe in fairy tales. "We'll try," I said, squeezing her hand. That's when I saw him, Mickey the bookkeeper, slipping through the crowd with a briefcase. He wasn't supposed to be here. My stomach twisted as he spotted me, his eyes narrowing. Before I could move, he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. But I knew what it meant. Someone had tipped off the crew. "We gotta move," I told Kate, pulling her toward the platform. The train wasn't boarding yet, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The platform was a chaos of steam and shouting porters, the California Limited gleaming under the station lights like a promise of freedom. Kate and I slipped into the crowd, keeping our heads low. The bag of cash felt heavier with every step, like it was pulling me back to Chicago's bloody heart. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see Sean's ghost or Liam's scowl, but it was worse. Mickey reappeared, flanked by 2 of Capone's boys, their fedoras pulled low and their hands in their coats. "Vinny," Kate whispered, her voice tight. "They're here." I grabbed her arm and pushed through the crowd, aiming for the train's rear cars. If we could board early, hide in a compartment, we might make it out. But as we reached the platform's edge, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I spun, fist raised, and found Tommy staring at me, his grin gone. "You didn't think it'd be that easy, did you?" he said. I froze. "Tommy, what the hell?" He nodded toward Kate. "She's the one you should be asking. She's been playing you from the start." My blood ran cold. I turned to Kate, her face pale, her eyes darting between us. "Vinny, he's lying," she said, but her voice cracked, and I saw the truth in it. She'd been working with Tommy, maybe even Liam all along. The red dress, the whispered promises, it was all a game to keep me close, to make sure I'd take the fall. "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She opened her mouth, but Tommy cut her off. "Save it, Kate. Liam wanted the cash, but he wanted you gone, Vinny. You were too soft, too loyal. Kate was just the bait." Before I could react, Capone's boys closed in, guns drawn. The crowd scattered, screams echoing as I shoved Kate behind me. Tommy raised his hands, playing innocent, but I wasn't buying it. I dove for cover behind a luggage cart, pulling my .45. The first shot grazed my arm, hot pain searing through me, but I fired back, catching one of Capone's men in the leg. He went down cursing, and the other hesitated just long enough for me to grab Kate and run. We made it to the train, scrambling into a freight car as the whistle blew. The car was dark, smelling of oil and wood, and we crouched behind crates as the train lurched forward. Kate was shaking, tears streaking her face, but I couldn't look at her. Not yet. The train rattled west, the rhythm of the rails a steady pulse under my feet. Kate sat across from me, her dress crumpled, her eyes avoiding mine. The bag of cash was between us, a silent accusation. My arm throbbed where the bullet had grazed it, but I'd torn a strip from my shirt to bind it. We were alive for now, but Chicago's reach was long, and I didn't know who to trust anymore. "Vinny," Kate said finally, her voice barely above the train's rumble. "I didn't want it to go like this." "Then why'd you do it?" I snapped. "Why string me along? Was it all a lie?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Not all of it. I cared about you, Vinny. But Liam, he's my brother. He said you were a liability, that you'd get us all killed. I was supposed to keep you close, make sure you didn't run with the money." "And Sean?" I asked, remembering the bruise on her cheek. She touched her face, wincing. "Sean found out I was reporting to Liam. He thought I was double-crossing him, too. He hit me, said he'd kill me if I didn't play along." I wanted to believe her, but trust was a cracked glass, ready to shatter. "So what now?" I said. "We can't go back." She leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "We don't have to. We've got the money. We can start over, Vinny, just you and me." Anand and I laughed bitter. "You think I'm that dumb? You'll sell me out again the second we stop running." She didn't answer, just looked out the window at the passing fields, dawn breaking over the horizon. I leaned back, closing my eyes, trying to think. The money could buy us a new life, but it was blood money, tied to Frankie's death, to Sean's, to every mistake I'd made. I didn't know if I could live with it or without Kate. Hours passed, the train carrying us through Indiana, then Illinois' edge. I dozed, exhaustion winning out, but woke to the sound of boots on the car's floor. A conductor, maybe, but my gut said otherwise. I grabbed Kate's arm, pulling her behind a crate. "Stay quiet," I whispered. The boots stopped, and a voice called out, low and familiar. "Vinny, you in here?" It was Big Paulie. I gripped my gun, heart pounding. Big Paulie wasn't the type to travel alone, and if he was here, Liam wasn't far behind. Kate's eyes were wide, her hand clutching mine. The train's sway made the crates creak, masking our breathing, but I knew we couldn't hide forever. "Vinny," Paulie called again, his voice closer. "Come out, kid. Let's talk." I weighed my options. Run, and we'd be hunted. Fight, and we might not walk away. Or talk, and maybe buy time. I glanced at Kate, her face a mix of fear and determination. Whatever she'd done, she was with me now. I had to believe that. "All right, Paulie," I said, stepping out with my hands raised, gun tucked in my waistband. "Let's talk." He was alone, surprisingly, his massive frame filling the car's narrow aisle. His eyes flicked to the bag at my feet, then back to me. "You've caused a lot of trouble, Vinny," he said, almost sad. "Liam's done with you. So's Capone. But I owe you for Frankie. so I'm giving you a chance." "A chance?" I said, skeptical. He nodded. "Leave the money. Walk away. I'll tell Liam you're dead." I hesitated. The money was our ticket out, but it was also a curse. Every dollar was stained with blood, Frankie's, Sean's, maybe mine if I kept it. I looked at Kate, her eyes pleading, and made my choice. "Take it," I said, kicking the bag toward him. Paulie picked it up, his face unreadable. "Smart move, kid. Get off at the next stop. Don't come back to Chicago." He turned and left, the bag slung over his shoulder. Kate grabbed my arm, her voice urgent. "Vinny, what are you doing? That's everything." "It's nothing," I said, my voice steady. "We're free." The train slowed as it approached a small station in Iowa, the platform empty except for a lone farmer with a cart. Kate and I jumped off, the morning air cool and clean, nothing like Chicago's grit. We had no money, no plan, but for the first time in years, I felt light. Kate took my hand, her fingers warm. "What now, Vinny?" I looked west, where the sun was rising over endless fields. "We start over," I said. "No gangs, no guns, just us." She smiled, tentative but real, and we started walking. Chicago was behind us, a city of shadows and blood. Ahead was something new, maybe not safe, but ours.